Good morning, and thank you for joining us for another in our series of online programs. My name is Patrice Weaver, and I am the Education Programs Manager with the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. The Commission is a secular, nonpartisan state agency that strives to preserve the memory of the Holocaust and promote public understanding of the history. Today, we present the first in a new series on rescue and resistance during the Holocaust. Our presenter, Dan Alone, is a member of our Speakers Bureau. He is going to share 3 stories of rescue in Nazi-occupied Europe during World War II, which he calls the circus, the zoo, and the sewer. Now I'll turn it over to Dan.
The third story is the sewer. Here's some diagrams that Patrice found of the, I can't read any kind of schematics, but you can take a look at the sewer. Now, one thing that's different when we talk about sewer, here when we talk about the sewers, our sewer systems are closed. In Europe, heck, even when I was in the Mediterranean, sewers flowed into open water. These sewers were a combination of storm sewer and sewage. So the city of Lvov, which is now the Ukraine, which is one time was Poland and another time was part of the Russian Empire and then the Austro-Hungarian Empire, there was a river flowing through the city. It was actually a marvel of engineering that they built this city above this river. And then this was Austro-Hungarian Empire when they built it. And then all these different sewage tunnels and things from all over the city fed to this river, which then went, just flowed on out. The river flowed under part of the area that became the ghetto in Lvov. The Chigger family, this is Leopold Socha, he's the rescuer, but the Chigger family, there was a father, wife, and little boy and a little girl. He, with a bunch of other men, trying to figure out, they knew something, they weren't quite sure what was happening. The people were being deported, but rumors would come back to what was happening, but a lot of people couldn't believe it. They just knew that it wasn't good. So they started in the basement of one of the houses that all these families were jammed in the ghetto. They started digging a hole, and they dug through this hole. It took them a long time because one of the things that they had to do was they had to muffle the sounds because the Germans would be listening for it. And then they also had to move all the debris because they went about 10 feet down. And this was just basically on luck. They went about 10 feet down till they hit one of the tunnels in there. And then they started, again, food is short. They start trying to hoard what little food they can so that when the final roundups come, they will descend into the sewers and try and save themselves. They obviously weren't the only people that thought that. The sewers became hiding places for people all over Europe. And obviously the Germans knew what was going on. Now, one thing about Lvov, the city, I think the population was about 600,000. And like I said before, you had Poles, you had Jews, and you had Ukrainians. You couldn't be a Ukrainian Jew, you were a Jew. You couldn't be a Polish Jew, you were a Jew. So you had 3 ethnic groups. As I said, the Ukrainians were above the Poles and the Poles were above the Jews. So it was split, basically the city was split 3 ways. When the Germans came in, the Ukrainians were more than happy to collaborate with the Germans. They used Ukrainian police to round up the Jews that were in the city. They also, if they didn't shoot the Poles, they allowed some Poles that they knew needed to operate part of the I can't think of the word. Anyway, operate the different services in the city. Socha had actually been in prison and released. He was a thief. Socha was a supervisor in the sewer. And as I mentioned, it's sewage and storm sewers. So he's in the sewers every day. They had to break out blockages to make sure the water would keep moving and not bubble up into the streets. So when the final roundup comes, the Chigger family, along with probably about 30 people, come through this hole into the sewer, and Socha finds them. If they're not sure what's going on, they think they're dead. The Germans are coming into the sewer at the time from other ends. They're killing people. Socha, with another one of his friends, Wroblewski, decided that they would help them for 500 zlotys a day. Chigger was a wealthy businessman, or middle-class businessman, and he had some money. So he arranged with Socha for 500 zlotys a day to take care of the group. There was too many people. They had to go through a winnowing down of how many people could be there, and eventually got to 21 people that Socha started taking care of. If you watch the movie called In Darkness, if you watch the movie, which is really an incredible movie, you'll see what it's like. When the people first went in there, if you can imagine stepping into a septic tank. People immediately got sick. They only had one set of clothes. They were coming through a hole. And in many areas, the men and the women could not stand up straight. You had to stay bent over. You couldn't lie down because in many cases, water is moving over the wall, over the platforms, and it's raw sewage. So they would just stand for long periods of time. Through a bunch of different problems happening, Socha, trying to keep other sewer workers from finding him, because at this time now, the Germans are offering quite a bit of money for any Jew that you find. So if you could listen in, you couldn't talk, because if somebody's listening in a manhole above, knowing that the Jews went from the ghetto into this labyrinth of tunnels, you would try and turn them in so that you could get food, sugar, or money, whatever. One of the things that Socha had been doing as the Jews were moved out of the city into the ghetto, Socha and his buddy, Wroblewski, were breaking into Jewish houses and stealing a lot of the stuff that was there, hiding it in the sewer, then taking it out and selling it on the black market. You could be shot for that because all of that property was property of the German government. So he's a thief. What's also interesting, he was a very, very religious Catholic. I don't know how that goes together, but he was. And this comes into play a little bit later. So Socha decides for money that he would hide these people. And again, remember what the penalty is. And then also his wife gets involved in it. And then she's spending whole days going out trying to find food for these people because food is so short. There was an elderly lady, she died. And typically what happened when people died in other parts of the sewer, you would see the bodies floating down. Socha, as he began to like these people, you got to remember he lived in a country where anti-Semitism was the way to go. He began to like these people. He insisted, no, I'll take the lady out. And he asked them, what do I have to do for a proper Jewish burial? When the high holidays came, Socha went out and found mainly people were living on onions. He went out and found a bag of as houses that he was breaking into. He found he found different prayer books, different psalm books. He would bring coloring books, crayons, anything he could bring in to keep the people occupied. If it's hard to imagine any of this stuff, but just go stand in your basement and turn the lights out and try to stand there. You're not going to have any smell, but just try to stand there. They had one carbide light. There's 21 people. There was one lady that had entered the area with them. She wore heavy clothes over her, and she was hiding her pregnancy because she didn't know what people would do. And now the Chiggers and this other family, can't remember their name right now, those 8 people were friends before. But prior to that, these were people that were forced into the house that they lived in above the sewer. So now you have all these different personalities. You have absolutely nothing to do. You're short of food. Chigger is paying Socha money to bring stuff in. Then people are arguing over the food. The kids are going nuts. Eventually Socha brought them planks of wood that they could sit on during the day, and that the adults would take turns laying on the plank because that's the only time that they could stand up straight. Try to imagine it. You're bent over the whole time. And this whole time also, dysentery is passing through all the people that are hiding there. Eventually, Chigger runs out of money, and he goes to Socha and he says, I'm out of money. You've done what you could. Thank you. There's nothing else that I can do. And Socha says, well, look, he gives him 500 zlotys back. And he says, what I want you to do is each day when I come down with food, pay me the 500 zlotys, because I don't want any of these other guys to think I'm easy. And then I'll give you the money back and you can keep paying me. Prior to this, as Chigger was running out of money, he told Socha where he had hidden a bunch of family jewels in a cemetery outside the city. He told Socha where it was. He told Socha, go dig it up, take it, and sell the jewels. Of course, his wife and the other people said, you're never going to see that again. And Socha actually brought the bundle of jewels back to Chigger. He gave them to Chigger. Everybody, of course, was amazed. And Chigger then started giving them to him to take them out and sell them. At the end of the war, he hadn't sold any of the jewels. He had actually kept the jewels for the family. I said his wife got involved on it, and one of the things that she started doing was doing the laundry for the people. So once a week, the people were able to change their clothes. She would launder the clothes, and he would bring them back. Now, he also lived in an apartment building, so all the time that this is happening, he has to make sure he's not standing out among what he's doing. And if you read a lot of the rescue stories, you know about that. With George Richfeld, he talks about living on the 3rd floor and people not coming out while the family that was hiding him was taking him down the steps. So there was a lot of willful ignorance around that area. So Socha, they saved the people. The number gets down to 13. Here's where Lvov is. It was on the border of Poland and the Ukraine. Here's a picture. Now, this is a picture from the 1900s. I mean, the 1990s. So this is not raw sewage now. This is still very dirty water, but this is the river going through. Poland eventually, as most European cities were supposed to do, started treating sewage or putting it in different areas, but not in the river. So if you can take a look at these, this is what it was like. Also, one of the things in the book, The Girl in the Green Sweater, is one of the things that she mentions is that the water was very fast moving. So although it was sewage, it was moving. If you fell in the water, you weren't coming back because it was moving so quickly. And they would talk about seeing bodies coming back, passing by them. Here's a picture of Socha and his wife. Here's the Chiggers. And Christina wrote a book about it. It's called The Girl in the Green Sweater. She had a green sweater that her grandmother had made for her. Here's a picture from the movie, and it shows how close they're standing to the wall and the water moving through. So after 13 months in the sewer, 21 went in this group, and 10 came out. But try to imagine 13 months without seeing the sun. Socha one day took Christina up to a manhole because as he was coming into the sewer, she was giving a play. They tried to do things to keep everybody sane, and they would have theatrical acts, they would have little plays, and she just talked about how she hopes someday that she could see a bird. She didn't remember what they looked like. Obviously, there weren't a lot of birds in the ghetto. She was in the ghetto for a year before they went into the sewer. So Socha took her to a manhole cover, popped open the manhole cover, and allowed her to see some pigeons and some sunlight. But other than that, no sunlight for 13 months, if you can imagine. This is a picture of her after the war. This is her sweater. I believe the sweater is at the Holocaust Museum in DC. They made 2 movies about it. The first movie, In Darkness, and that's a scene where Socha's brought her out to see sunlight and see the birds. So this movie was based on a book written about the sewer. Nobody knew that Christina Chigger was still alive. Agnieszka Holland made the book. Made the movie. She also made a movie called Europa, which is an excellent movie. So she made the movie based on another book, not Christina's book. Then one of Christina's friends said, hey, they just made a movie about your life. And she's like, holy cow, I didn't know that. So long story short, she got in touch with Agnieszka Holland. There's another movie called In Light. Both of these you can find. You can search Netflix, Amazon Prime. You can try to find out these stories. And the interview between Agnieszka and Christina is really incredible. Christina said there's nothing that she would change about the movie, which is really unusual. When you're making a movie about somebody, you haven't talked to that somebody, you're taking third-hand information. So it was really, those are two incredible books. Socha and his partner survived the war. 1946, Socha was riding a bicycle with his daughter. A Russian army truck was out of control, and Socha rammed her bike with his bike to knock her out of the way. He was hit and crushed by the truck. As he was dying on the street, it said that somebody said, "That's what you get for hiding Jews." Now back to the religious part, he and his wife were both very religious. He had been brought up to basically hate Jews. She had not. She kept trying to tell him, no, they're religious. It doesn't matter what their religion is, they're still religious. And then it started to sink into his head. And that's why when he had that turn, when he went from money to now, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and save you. When he did different things for the people that he was taking care of, what I couldn't think of before, when Hanukkah was coming up, he brought them a menorah and candles. And he did everything he could to keep these people's spirits going. The number winnowed down from the 21 that went in because a number of people left, jumped into the sewer. There was a number of men that left, and Socha found their bodies and came back and told them what had happened. And I mentioned also that the pregnant lady gave birth in the sewer. She was out of her mind because one of the men that left and then was murdered by the Ukrainians or the Germans was the man that had gotten her pregnant. And then there was people were screaming and arguing about the baby's crying. You're going to be able to hear it through the sewer. You need to get rid of the baby. Socha went home. He had a heart-to-heart with his wife. They decided that they would take the baby in. When he came back to the sewer, the mother had smothered the baby. It's just so hard to imagine. But anyway, that's three incredible stories: the circus, the zoo, and the sewer. And all three have a movie. Two, there's a book. I can't read German, but there is a book about the circus in German. Nothing in English yet. And I recommend these movies to you. They're excellent movies.
Thank you, Dan. If you have any questions about today's presentation or would like to suggest future topics, please email me. My email address is patriceweaver@holocaust.georgia.gov. Thank you very much.